There have been 2 high-profile co-op game play tests recently, and I've played both of them, so I want to talk about it. Here I was, thinking I was never gonna talk about Elden Ring ever again. And then there's, here, I'll show the comment on screen, but literally just, I think it was a day after or just a couple days after my last video, Elden Ring Nightreign was announced. And of course, it's a co-op focused Elden Ring game, and so I can't not talk about it. So here we are. I did manage to get into this playtest. It was on PlayStation only, but thankfully I have one of those. But also, we're not going to just talk about Nightreign because I've also played Monster Hunter Wilds early. I recognize that this is probably less exciting because, you know, it's open beta or whatever. There's like 3 of them, but I still want to talk about what my thoughts are, considering I am absolutely going to be reviewing Monster Hunter Wilds coming here soon. So yeah, as Keith Lee says, I got it. Let's try it and rate it 1 through 10. I mean, I'm not going to rate it 1 through 10, but I'm going to tell you what my thoughts. Okay, first I want to talk about Nightreign, which, I mean, I already said I didn't think I'd be talking about this, but oh my God, I am so excited because this is the first Souls game that's like actually actively focusing on co-op instead of it being like a kind of a side feature where you can play co-op, but it's not like intended. And that's like the first thing on my list of things to talk about is the better co-op systems. The summoning system, gone. You don't have to do it anymore. It's like actual real matchmaking. It's designed around 3 players, which is interesting. It still has the password set up. So like if you and another friend don't have a third, you can set up a password and then you'll match with your friend first and then it will match with a third person. I don't know why they didn't just do a party system, like being able to see each other walk around in like Firelink or whatever, but I mean, hey, it works. From what I've been able to tell, the netcode feels better than a lot of Souls games launches. I mean, we still definitely had a few people that just like dropped connections, but it doesn't seem like it's like huge. And I mean, hey, we didn't end up having to play with like randoms. We actually could just play like me and Jared for once, which is really cool. And on that note, like it's 3 players, which is something that I'm like, I don't know if anyone's ever watched my Dark Souls 3 review from years ago. I did talk about how the 3-player aspect can kind of make Souls games way too easy. Like obviously co-op in Souls games is going to make them easier, but like 3 players, it gets kind of ridiculous. So I wasn't expecting 3-player bosses and fights to really feel all that difficult, but I was wrong. Absolutely. These bosses, like some of them are old, some of them are new. We'll get into that in a second, but this whole thing being designed around 3 players, I didn't think it would work out, but it is really working somehow. I really like how it's easy to just cooperate with people, mix and match builds. You can use any weapon that you want, so that's really fun. So there's not really any limit there, but like everyone can play who they want, and like the combination of like abilities and stuff is really fun. But again, it's 3 players, which feels like an odd number, but from what I can tell, there might be 2-player at some point, at least if this article's anything to go by. I really hope so, because spoiler alert, we did beat the final boss, me and Jared, but surprisingly, it was actually after our 3rd random disconnected. So we actually played like a full run, just the 2 of us, and actually worked out really well. So genuinely, I really hope they do add a 2-player system, even though 3-player works great. And I talked about it a little bit earlier, but there's a bunch of bosses and not all of them are new. A lot of them are like pulled from Dark Souls, Elden Ring. I think there might be Bloodborne. I might be pulling that out of my ass, but like from other FromSoft games, we've got some new stuff. So like we fought Tree Sentinel from Elden Ring, Morgott. We also fought, I don't remember his name, but he's from Dark Souls 1. I'll show footage now. And then the like big boy, the big time boss was the one at the very end, which was an original boss fight. It's like this Cerberus looking dog that then splits into 3 dogs. Very interesting. That fight is really hard without a 3rd person. To be fair, it's difficult even with a 3rd person. We have seen other bosses that could be a part of the game. Like I think the Nameless King has shown up in some of the advertising material. So I'm really excited to see who else they're bringing in. I want to know what the new bosses are, but obviously getting to fight the Nameless King or anything else, I would love it if something like, I don't know if Bloodborne would even be a part of it, but I would love it if like Vicar Amelia was a boss that you could fight 3-player. Would love that. That'd be super cool, but who's to say? I have no idea. On the subject of there being previous games bosses, though, I have been hearing rumblings about people being concerned about this being an asset flip, which is understandable. It's pretty much Elden Ring. Like, it's all the same stuff. I think there's new weapons. There are some new bosses, maybe some new enemies. I actually probably should know that after all the Elden Ring content that I've made, but I'm fairly certain there's some newish enemies, but a lot of it's reused. I mean, it looks identical, like the engine, like the shaders, it looks like Elden Ring. And so I think people are probably worried about this maybe feeling, you know, not worth the money if people are going to be spending like big money on a game that they've already played before. I will say, yes, it definitely feels a lot like Elden Ring, but to me, it feels almost like a side mode. Like if they made, well, technically it is a battle royale, I guess, but if they made their own battle royale, like Call of Duty has made it free to play, but I think it makes perfect sense to make it like $40 and not have a battle pass and all that kind of stuff. To me, the game design kind of makes up for the lack of like new assets. Maybe it's just me, but I really didn't need there to be a ton of like a completely new engine, a completely new story for this to happen. It felt kind of right. I don't know. I just didn't even think about it while I was playing it. I just thought that the gameplay loop is really, really fun, which I should probably talk about like what the game actually is. I realized I've been talking this whole time. I haven't even talked about like what Nightreign is supposed to be. So Nightreign is a 3-player co-op battle royale-ish, sort of like roguelike type Elden Ring game. So basically you'll start 3 players, you'll kind of enter kind of like a battle royale. There'll be an introduction of like all the people and like what they look like and stuff. Then you'll ride in on these birds, you'll drop in on the map and you'll just be set off. And there are locations on the map that like get you bosses, which gives you items or abilities or that kind of thing. It's really just kind of like your standard kind of roguelike affair a little bit. You fight, you risk it all to get items, which gets you more powerful, and you move on in hopes to get enough power to fight the boss. What's interesting though is that it's actually based on a day-night cycle. At the beginning of the day, you have 1 full day until it's nighttime, Nightreign, to be able to fight the boss. So your goal is to get as many kills because you need to get souls to like upgrade your level. There's no more stat partitioning. It's all about just leveling up. So you just take your souls to a bonfire and you just press level up as many times as you can. There's no need to worry about where your stats go. That's all predetermined by the class that you set initially, which yes, there are classes instead of actually choosing what your character wears or what, you know, kind of abilities they have. I find this super interesting and actually it's really, really fun because these classes feel really fleshed out and they each have their own kind of niche that I really like. And I don't even think we've seen all of them yet. The guy that Jared played, it was like this mage guy that you could like pair different elements with, and each time you paired certain elements together, it would change the ability he could do. So he could do big damage, big time, and it was really, really fun. The guy that I played, I cannot remember anybody's names, but I'm just gonna go with, I was the grapple hook guy. Basically, he has this grappling hook. It's not for climbing, but it's kind of like a way to scoot along the map. You can either scoot enemies towards you if they're small enough, or you can scoot yourself towards an enemy if it's like a boss. And his ultimate is kind of like this firebomb crossbow thing. It's on the same arm as the grappling hook. But what's super fun is that you can kind of pair them together. And I kind of learned this close to the end of our play sessions. You can just grapple on to a boss, and then right as you get close, you can use the firebomb on that boss, and it will almost always cancel a move. It is like super fun, really easy damage. It's dangerous for sure because you don't have a way to go back out, but it is so much fun and it feels so smooth. But okay, I got off topic. The classes are really, really fun. How this works as opposed to other roguelikes is, like I said, it's a day-night cycle. So you do a full day, you fight a boss. If you survive fighting that boss, then another day will start. And then you do the same thing. You'll kill a bunch of people, you try to get items, level up, that kind of thing. Then you'll fight another boss. If you're able to beat that boss, then you'll be sent, at least with how the runs that we played, you'll be sent to the final boss. You won't be able to get any more souls. So there's like a store, there's like an anvil where you can like level up your weapons and stuff. And then you fight the final boss. And then if you beat that, that's it. That's the run. I am interested to see if they kind of change up how runs go depending on like the boss fight, because it looks like from the main menus, you choose the run depending on the boss fight. Obviously at the end of each day, the boss fights are still randomized, but I am interested to see how each boss kind of adjusts how the runs go. But that's pretty much it. It's pretty free flowing. Like I said earlier, any class can use any type of weapon. So like my class, who's like very much starts with a greatsword, he could use a dex weapon. He can use magic weapons. Like it just whatever you want to use, which I really, really like that flexibility. There's also this addition of like a really fast sprint. So I'm a huge fan of that. Especially it's important because it does have a circle, kind of like an actual battle royale. It doesn't seem like the circle does that much damage, but there is still one, and the super sprint is really useful, and I can tell is actually like kind of really important to some of the boss fights design. I really like it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Sekiro. You can tell they pulled some stuff from Sekiro, which I really like, because there's like jumping, but there's also mantling while you're super sprinting, which is super cool. Particularly the final boss, I had so much fun with. You're sprinting, he has these big chain swords that he can shoot out and spin around. So like high mobility is key. I didn't do runs with all of the classes, but I did do Guardian. That's the one I remember, which was the bird guy. He can fly up in the air, which is really fun. And then of course the grappling hook guy. Super fun boss fights. Feels very different from Elden Ring. And I will say, I'm going to move into the little bit of the difficulty now. I recognize that people probably don't trust me anymore if you've watched my last video, but I do want to talk about it. I think the difficulty's high, but it doesn't feel unfair. It feels just fun, like really like intense move sets. They're crazy, but it doesn't feel impossible and it doesn't feel bullshit. It feels very fair and I really, really really like that. I would say so far I've been having a difficult time with it, but that's because it definitely feels the tempo of fights is definitely different as it was from Elden Ring. But also at the same time, I mean, it is difficult, but it's also really forgiving in kind of surprising ways. Number one, there's infinite revives. Like in a lot of co-op games, there are times when like, if you want to res somebody, it'll take one of your healing items. Like that's pretty standard practice, I think. That's not the case in this game. The more that you die, the longer it takes to revive somebody. But as far as I can tell, there's no limit on how many times you can revive somebody. And on a side note to that, what's fascinating is it's not like an interact thing where you just have to wait. You actually have to hit your teammates in order to revive them. It's like you're using stamina to hit your friends in order to like revive them. And the longer it takes, like the more hits it takes, the less stamina you'll have for like dodging the boss. I think it's a really smart way to balance how to handle revives in a game like this with these kinds of bosses. The other thing that's weirdly forgiving is that there's no permadeath outside of like the actual boss fights. If all of you die in the middle of the first day or the middle of the second day, the run doesn't end. You'll just respawn, which I found interesting. You can go pick up your souls after you die. Very classic Elden Ring, Dark Souls. But it also feels kind of strange for a roguelike of this, you know, caliber. I would have thought this would have been hyper punishing. Like, I mean, like the DLC was super punishing. But nope. And we only ran into that because my brother, who we were playing with, he disconnected really early on in a run. So Jared and I were like, well, guess we'll die. And we couldn't. We had to do a full day to get to a boss fight to actually like reset it, which I mean kind of sucks, but ideally the netcode will get better. And I'll talk more about that later. I don't really want to talk about like constructive criticism in a playtest because I know stuff will change and launch is kind of far out. So I don't really want to like make any big statements, but I did notice some things. I think probably the biggest thing that I noticed is that the runs feel a little repetitive. Like, yes, runs are random, sort of. Who you fight against at the end of each day is random, but they're like on set runs. I can't tell if this is how the full game is going to go, but let me give you an example. So let's say at the end of your first day, if you fight the tree sentinel, you will always fight Morgott as the next day, which was fascinating because I thought it was random, but it didn't feel like it was. So it's like, it was always like, oh, tree sentinel, that means Morgott is next. It seemed like there were only 2 predetermined runs, which was weird. I'm sure it's probably not going to work like that in a full release, but that was concerning. The other thing that I noticed was that performance was not the best. And again, this was a test and it was on PlayStation no less. So I'm like, my expectations are not super high with a playtest like this. They're just not. But the FPS did dip way below 60 FPS plenty of times. It was rough. But you know, I think that's probably gonna get ironed out before launch. They've got plenty of time to fix that. So I'm not really that worried about it. Overall though, I'm so excited for Nightreign, like genuinely so excited. I wish I was more upset that I would have to talk about more Elden Ring, but I'm not. This is like kind of exactly what someone like me, I mean, my channel's all about co-op games, so this is exactly what I would want. A big budget co-op game, that's a huge deal. So I'm very, very excited about what this has to offer. Can't wait to see what bosses and what other classes there are. I have heard that there's gonna be DLC. Sounds like it's gonna be a great time. But that is not all. This year we are getting 2 big budget, big time co-op games for me. And this does not happen. Like I do not get 2 big games that I am incredibly excited about that are co-op in the same year. Like that never happens. And of course, we all know this, the next game, Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, this one is a little bit less exciting because like it was a lot easier to play the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. If you had a PlayStation or a PC at any point in the last few months, you've gotten to play it at least a couple times. I unfortunately did not do a lot of recording on this. I wish I had thought about it, but I just didn't record it. Right now, you're probably just gonna be watching me fighting an Arkveld or something. Like I thought about it like midnight before the playtest like would end. So this is what we're working with. I'm sorry. This game, so excited about. I actually trying to get this video out before it comes out so I can get these pre-thoughts about what it might be before the game comes out. I know the review embargo is already up. I'm trying not to look at the reviews, but I just want to talk about how I felt from what I've played. Now, a little bit of backstory on this game. This is a sequel to World, Monster Hunter World. There was a game in between, Monster Hunter Rise, which is like a half sequel, but it wasn't a big budget console PC exclusive, or not exclusive, but big budget PC and console game. And a big budget console and PC game this is, because oh my God, it is gorgeous. Like you can tell that Monster Hunter World was Capcom's biggest selling game because I think they dumped some money into this game. Number one, that's most important to me, the monsters. The monsters are so fucking cool. At least the ones that we got to play in this test, they're all pretty unique. There's jokes about it on TikTok, but like the beginning, like the Chatacabra is like really easy to fight. The earlier monsters are pretty easy, but then once you get into like Raydau and Arkveld, that's when it gets really difficult. And I think what's interesting is that the difficulty remained high because in this test, you couldn't craft weapons and you couldn't craft armor. So like for me, I have like, I don't know, 450 hours in World. And so like my item box is chock full of mega potions. Like I don't have to worry about that ever again. But now restarting, I'm like, oh shit, I have to go scrounge around for herbs and honey and stuff. And plus having kind of shitty armor definitely makes it more difficult. So I'm kind of glad for that. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Really, really cool monsters. And I think Arkville that they added for the second playtest was so smart. It was very difficult. We played him. We tried killing him like right when he came out. Everyone was struggling with him, but we did end up managing to beat him in the first day. And that was really, really fun. His moveset is so interesting, so devastating. I can tell why he's the flagship monster for this game. But okay, that's the monsters. I want to move on and talk about the other interesting stuff. As I said, the visuals are incredible. I don't know how they're able to push this Resident Evil engine this far, but they are. They're getting their money's worth out of this engine, and I'm all for it. Most notably about the visuals, I think the animations have just gone 2-3 tiers upward. Like Monster Hunter World was a nice looking game in terms of animations, but this game, wow. Most notably, I just love to watch my character kind of like run away, like if there's like this big attack coming, and then how the animations would transition when you would turn or you try to run back towards the monster. I just love how that looks. It felt really good. Maybe that's really niche, but I really love animations in games, so I was a big fan of that. Now, as far as new features, there aren't any new weapons. I think that's been confirmed in a lot of the articles that I've heard about this, so there's no new weapon. That is kind of sad, but I think they've done a lot with what they have. I am not like ambidextrous enough, I don't even know if that's the right word, to use like all the weapons. I like want to get into using the greatsword, so that's my attempt. That's what we're going to try and do when this game comes out. But they have added a bunch of new things to each weapon's moveset. Like there's these big clashes that you can do with like weapons that can block, which is really, really fun. I have yet to try that out, but like I know the greatsword has like an up slash that can cancel a move, which is really cool. But if it's anything like the longsword, they have done a lot of quality of life improvements. So like if you miss the ultimate of the longsword when you're like jumping up in the air, you can actually sheath your weapon now, which is really nice. Or if you miss the like big counter, the special sheath, I think is what it's called, it doesn't take a bar, which is really nice. Overall, I think they did a really good job of like adding new stuff without completely ruining people's already pre-existing rotations, which I really appreciate. The next big feature is the secret. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, but like it's just a bird dog. You get a bird dog. Everyone was super happy with the Palamutes in Monster Hunter Rise. I love those guys, but just the fact that you can sharpen your weapon, like drink potions and stuff while you're on it is game changer. But now on top of all of that for Monster Hunter Rise, you can also glide with this dog thing, and that's sick. You can also store a secondary weapon on your secret, which is crazy. Like you can actually have an entirely different weapon. That's why I'm going to start doing greatsword, because I can just bring it along with me. So definitely gonna have to try that out. I love that as an idea. There is a grappling hook, not the same as Monster Hunter Rise or even Monster Hunter World. I'm actually not sure if you can use it off of your secret, but when you're like riding your bird dog thing, you can aim and shoot at various materials and it'll bring it towards you, so you don't actually have to like walk towards each thing. Like if your secret is just kind of gunning it towards a monster, you can just like grab a thing while you're going, which is really cool. Speaking of aiming at stuff, there's also a way to adjust where your attacks go with aiming. So if you like hold down left trigger, you can actually aim where the next move is going to go. If your weapon has long extended move sets where it's kind of hard to readjust if you start too early and then the monster moves, you can actually adjust that now. So mid combo, you hold left trigger, you try pointing at the monster, it will turn you around way faster than ever before. As a longsword main, definitely a big fan of that. I'm not going to say it's going to make me better because I'm probably going to do some bad habits with it, but I mean, hey, if I'm able to, I will. Wounds are another really cool thing. If you hit a spot on a monster for long enough, it will start to like open up a gash like on the monster's texture, which is really neat. It will start to glow, and then you hold the aiming thing that we talked about earlier, and it's like a focus strike. So you, as long as you aim and hit right trigger, I think on the part itself, you'll do like a special move and then break the wound, which will do a bunch of extra damage. I think I kind of like this mechanic a little bit more than what World had close to the end, where you're like clutch clawing onto every part of the monster and just slashing it until it's wounded. Yes, it was very helpful for doing big damage, but it's kind of less dynamic. It was very like formulaic, which at a certain point that's fine, but also, you know, dynamicism in this game is going to be really nice. Now, speaking of the clutch claw, it's not in this game. Not right now anyway, and it's dearly missed. Like I really miss it. So you can no longer clutch on to a monster, smack him in the face and launch him into a wall. As much as I wish that was a thing in this game, it's not. And I do hope they add it, but Who knows? Maybe there's some more mechanics that we haven't seen yet that will kind of take its place maybe, or maybe they thought that was too overpowered. We'll see. Okay, now we're gonna get into the stuff that I thought was a little strange. Again, this was a test. We already know that this most recent test build is not what they're working with now. Apparently it's gonna be way more optimized. Like there will be changes implemented. But from what I've played so far, co-op is really strange. It's very strange. There's no gathering hub. Granted, the like camp that you have, there was no blacksmith that you could use. There was no cook that you could use. So I don't really know how this will exactly work. But from what I can tell, there's no gathering hub. So there's no way to actually see your friends when you're like getting ready or eating food or that kind of thing, which I really miss. I really like the gathering hub. There is a way so you can kind of see your friends in the camp and stuff. And those are with environment links. Of course, with Monster Hunter, it's not super clear cut about how everything works, but essentially an environment link is kind of like going on an investigation from world, except the weird part is if you invite somebody to your environment link, you cannot start a new quest. You can't even like open a quest because technically you're already in one. So it's really great if you're going out to like discover new monsters, which you do at the beginning of this test. Like you don't know a lot of the monsters, so you go out and actually discover them, which then unlocks side missions. But it's kind of lame. I kind of wish that there was a way that we could still post stuff. I wish we could just be in the same world the whole time. But I mean, again, it was a test, so I'm not totally sure, but environment links were definitely strange. As I talked about before, this playtest didn't include any weapon variants or crafting of any kind besides like items. There's no armor crafting or anything like that. Like it was cool. Like definitely we got to see what armor sets were better against certain monsters, but they also came with their own decorations. So we didn't really get a choice in what kind of skills that we had. That was a bummer, but also I'm not like the biggest min-maxer, so whatever. Again, just like with Nightreign, the performance was not good, but in this case, it was it was really not good. I'm playing on a 3080 Ti and it does not run amazing. And this is with DLSS on, but apparently the optimization is going to get a lot better with the full release. We've already heard that the optimization for this test build was not going to be good. So I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm already planning on upgrading my computer to make sure I can play this game, but it's tough right now. Again, a lot of these things, the weirdness, I'm not going to put a lot of weight into that because that could change with full release. I have no idea. It is coming out. Well, I'm going to post this as soon as I can. It's coming out in a couple days as time of recording this. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Overall, I'm super excited. This game is so much fun. When Jared and I were all done, like fighting all the monsters and doing all the content, and he kind of stopped playing, I kept playing. I kept doing the same monsters over and over. I wanted to get better at them. I just wanted to see more of the world. It is fascinating. It's so cool. It's very intriguing, and I will be reviewing it. So you best believe I'll start recording that as soon as that game comes out. Highest anticipated game, and it's only February. But those are my thoughts on the playtests. Let me know if you got into any of them, and let me know your thoughts, what you think was cool or what you thought needs to be changed or whatever. I'd love to see what you guys think. I don't think I'm by any means a new person or have interesting thoughts about this, but I thought it'd be really fun to share because I'm definitely going to be reviewing both of these games, and I thought it was, this doesn't happen that often where we get playtests for two big time co-op games within weeks of each other. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble, and you'll see me in the next video, which will be a bigger regular review at some point, hopefully. Anyway, I'm TheAmazinggap, and thanks for watching.